"You're fired. My nephew's taking your place effective immediately." Those were his exact words, spoken right in front of my entire team. No warning, no performance review. Just humiliation served ice cold at 9 a.m. after 6 years of building that division from scratch, mentoring dozens of employees, and working 70-hour weeks. I was replaced by a smug 24-year-old with no experience, just a famous last name. They boxed up my office while I was still in it. But what he didn't know, I had built something of my own on the side quietly, methodically, and within 18 months, I'd do more than just get even. By the end of this story, you'll see how poetic justice works when you stay silent, stay focused, and let karma speak loudest. Make sure you subscribe because this true story will show you exactly how I brought the entire firm to its knees without ever raising my voice. But let me start from the beginning, the day I walked into that job with nothing but a borrowed blazer, big dreams, and no idea what was coming. That meeting, the one where I was fired in front of my own team, wasn't just a betrayal. It was the final blow in a war I didn't even know I was fighting until it was almost too late. But to truly understand why that moment hit so hard and why what happened next felt so perfectly earned, you need to see how deep the setup ran. How someone I once trusted groomed my downfall step by step, while I was too busy keeping the company afloat to notice. This isn't just about workplace politics. It's about ambition weaponized, loyalty abused, and what happens when a hardworking woman becomes a threat in the boys' club, and how she turns that threat into power. Because before I took down the firm, I gave it everything. And it all started on the morning I thought I was getting promoted. Emily Carter had never asked for much: a decent job, a roof over her daughter's head, and the chance to prove herself through hard work. That was enough. At 32, she'd climbed from receptionist to regional director at Warren & Blaine Consulting, a notoriously cutthroat firm in Chicago. She wasn't flashy, didn't have the right pedigree, but she delivered results no one could ignore. Her mornings started at 5:30 a.m. with her daughter Ava's cereal and school prep, followed by a train ride downtown and 12-hour days filled with project decks and client calls. She was building something for her family and for the small team that trusted her. To Emily, loyalty wasn't a slogan, it was how she led. And that loyalty had made her blind to what was happening right under her nose. She first met Jared Blaine during a Friday leadership meeting. He breezed into the conference room 10 minutes late, sipping cold brew and wearing that entitled smirk only legacy hires seem to perfect. "This is my nephew Jared," said Richard, her boss, without meeting her eyes. "Fresh out of Wharton. He'll be shadowing us for a few months." Emily smiled politely, then turned back to her notes. She didn't have time for babysitting. But over the next week, Jared started appearing in more and more meetings, speaking out of turn, undermining her insights, dropping phrases like dead weight departments and restructuring. At first, she brushed it off. He was young, arrogant, and clearly trying to impress his uncle. But one day she caught him in her office, scrolling through her client pipeline report like it belonged to him. What she didn't know then, he'd been planning something for weeks. Emily confronted him gently. "Hey, just so you know, that feels confidential." Jared gave a sheepish laugh. "Oh, sorry. Uncle Rich asked me to review it. You know, fresh perspective." She let it slide, but the next morning, Richard emailed her asking why her numbers looked inflated. That same report, reworded, repackaged, misrepresented. It only escalated from there. Her team started receiving conflicting instructions, some from her, some directly from Jared. He forwarded her emails with passive-aggressive commentary like, "Let's double-check this approach." He invited himself to client calls and subtly took over. Worst of all, Richard did nothing. No clarification, no boundaries, just that same empty smile during meetings. Emily started staying later, triple-checking every number, resending every memo. She even documented everything. But no matter how careful she was, the message was clear. She was being squeezed out. The email that hit her inbox on a rainy Tuesday morning confirmed it. Subject: organizational restructuring, effective immediately. No greeting, no thank you. Just a legal-sounding dismissal and an HR appointment link. They didn't even let her pack her desk alone. Her mentees looked down as she walked past. One mouthed, "I'm so sorry." In the elevator, she held it together. But once outside, she broke. Not just from shock but from the deep, stinging knowledge that she'd given them everything. And none of it mattered. Back home, Ava ran. Up with a drawing. "Mom, look, you're the queen of your office." Emily smiled, tucked it into her drawer, and locked the door behind her. But Jared's next move shocked even her. Within a week, he was in the press giving interviews about streamlining operations and fresh leadership vision. He quoted strategies she'd written, used her language, took credit for a client relationship she'd built from scratch. Friends in the industry reached out with confused texts. "Didn't you write that report?" She stayed silent, for now, but the worst part wasn't what they took. It was how easy it was for them to take it. I thought that was the worst it could get. I was naive. What happened over the next 6 months would test every belief I had about fairness, justice, and human decency, and she was just getting started. The following weeks turned my silence into suffering. Jared wasn't just replacing me, he was erasing me, and when he made one fatal mistake, I saw my opening and began to plan my return. The first few weeks after being let go were a blur. Emily tried to stay composed for Ava's sake, making pancakes in the morning, helping with math homework at night, but inside, she was unraveling. She wasn't just unemployed, she was erased. Her name had been removed from all the firm's online materials. Projects she built were now Jared's division. The client she'd onboarded over 18 months ago had apparently always been handled by Jared. Her inbox access was cut within hours. But the sting came when she received a call from that same client wondering why she hadn't told them she was leaving. The lies had already begun to spread. She scheduled a meeting with HR, hoping to at least secure a letter of recommendation. The conversation was cold, corporate. "We've transitioned," they said. "We wish you the best in your future endeavors." She mentioned Jared accessing confidential materials before her termination. Their eyes flickered, but they scribbled. "Nothing. I gave 6 years," she said, voice trembling. "Built a team from scratch." The HR rep offered a bland smile. Unfortunately, leadership made their decision. But what came next wasn't just dismissal. It was sabotage. 2 days later, Emily got a rejection email from a company she'd interviewed with. The HR note was polite, but attached was a file forwarded by mistake. It was an internal referral note from someone at her old company. Potential risk, not a team player. Struggles with feedback. Her stomach dropped. They weren't just done with her, they were poisoning her name. Quietly, efficiently. She reached out to an old friend still at the firm, Derek. "I don't know what they're saying, but it's not true," she whispered over the phone. Derek hesitated. I believe you, but they're spinning it fast. Jared's uncle's tightening things. He's already VP in name." "You're kidding." "No. Full title, office, all of it." That night, Emily opened her laptop and stared at the NDA she'd signed 6 years ago. She'd never expected to need it. Her throat tightened. She felt cornered for the first time. Scared. Then came the lowest point. Ava's school sent a tuition reminder. Emily had paid ahead, but her severance wouldn't stretch far. She thought of downgrading apartments, maybe moving back to her parents' house in Indiana. But that felt like failure. She curled up on the couch, holding Ava's Queen of the Office drawing to her chest. That was when the anonymous email arrived. No subject, just an attachment, a screen recording. Emily's fingers trembled as she pressed play. It was Jared, sharing her files on a Zoom call. Her color-coded strategy sheet, her metrics tracking system, even her exact phrasing. And at the end, he said, "Honestly, I rewrote most of this." She had some decent ideas, but it needed polish. What she felt in that moment wasn't rage. It was clarity. They'd stolen from her, lied about her, humiliated her. But now she had proof. She forwarded the video to her personal drive. She wasn't sure what she'd do with it yet, but it was the first time in weeks she felt in control. The next morning, she called a woman named Simone, an employment attorney recommended by a college friend. "This may sound crazy," Emily said, "but I think I have something." Simone listened patiently, then asked to see the video. After a long pause, she said, "How would you feel about going to war?" But the firm wasn't done. 2 days later, Emily received a cease and desist. Letter. Not from a stranger but from the firm's legal team, accusing her of attempting to interfere with business relationships. She blinked in disbelief. They're threatening me. Simone chuckled grimly. They're panicking. I thought it couldn't get worse. I was so wrong. Because what we uncovered next wasn't just professional misconduct, it was criminal. Jared had left a trail, and someone on the inside was about to help bring it all crashing down. Emily sat across from Simone in a quiet cafe just off Wabash Avenue. Her hands were still shaking as she slid the USB drive across the table. This is everything I could find: emails, Slack logs, that Zoom clip. Simone plugged it into her laptop and began reviewing in silence. After 10 minutes, she leaned back, lips pursed. This isn't just dirty, Simone said. This is illegal, intellectual property theft, retaliation, malicious defamation. We have grounds to sue. Emily let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. You said you want justice, Simone added. This isn't just about getting your job back. We're going to hit them where it hurts. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt something new: hope. That same evening, while organizing old Google Drive folders, Emily stumbled on something she had forgotten: an early draft of the client proposal Jared had stolen, timestamped, with tracked edits. It clearly showed her authorship. Even better, the metadata showed when it was last touched, weeks before Jared ever presented it. She sent it to Simone immediately. Then came the unexpected twist. At a.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message read, I saw what they did to you. I have more proof, but I can't talk here. Meet me at Atlas Coffee, Tuesday, 9 a.m. Emily stared at the message. Her mind raced. Could it be Derek? She arrived early, heart pounding. At 9:02, a familiar face entered. Maya, her former intern. Emily hadn't seen her since the summer program ended. I know I'm not supposed to reach out, Maya said, glancing around. But I saved everything. Jared made me clean his drive. He thought I wasn't paying attention. She pulled out a folder. Inside were printed emails, screenshots, even a private Slack message from Jared to Richard. Once she's out, we'll repackage her playbook and roll it out under my name. She's not leadership material anyway. Emily's hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. Why are you helping me? She asked softly. Because you believed in me, Maya replied. And what they did, that's not just corporate. That's evil. Emily hugged her. You just changed everything. Simone's eyes lit up when she saw the new documents. This is gold. We're not just suing for wrongful termination anymore. We're filing for defamation, breach of contract, IP theft, and retaliation. Will it hold? Emily asked. Oh, it'll do more than hold, Simone said. It'll explode. They filed the lawsuit within the week. Emily versus Warren and Blaine Holdings. The press got wind within 48 hours. It started with a single post on LinkedIn. Simone helped Emily write it. It read, I was terminated without cause after 6 years of service. My strategies were presented under someone else's name. I stayed silent for months, but not anymore. It went viral overnight. Hundreds of comments poured in, some angry, some shocked, many from former employees who had similar stories. The firm issued a sterile statement. We stand by our hiring practices and will respond appropriately through legal channels. But public trust was already cracking. 1 week later, a bombshell dropped. A major client, Worthington Tech, announced it was suspending its contract with Warren and Blaine pending ethical concerns. This was the same client Emily had personally nurtured. Then a second firm pulled out. By Friday, the board of directors called an emergency meeting. Jared went silent on social media. Richard's LinkedIn disappeared. And then Simone got the call. They want to settle, she said, smiling. They want it quiet, fast, and with as little damage as possible. What's your advice? We don't just want money, Simone replied. We want acknowledgement. We want policy change. And we want that apology on record. Emily felt a weight lift. Let's do it. Days later, Emily sat in mediation across from the very men who discarded her like she didn't matter. They looked smaller now, tired, sweaty, uncertain. The final settlement was confidential, but the apology wasn't. In a press release, Warren and Blaine admitted to a failure in internal oversight and unethical misrepresentation of intellectual property. Jared's name was never mentioned, but everyone knew. Emily walked out of that room taller. Justice was coming, and it was beautiful, but I didn't stop there. Because this story wasn't just about vindication, it was about building something better. And what I did next, that's when the real impact began. The morning after the mediation, Emily stood alone in her apartment, barefoot on the cold kitchen tiles, holding a warm cup of coffee. Not just any coffee, Atlas blend. A gift from Maya. Outside, the city moved on like it always had. But inside, something had shifted. For the first time in nearly a year, she wasn't carrying the weight of betrayal anymore. It was still there, a scar beneath the skin, but it didn't define her. Because she didn't just win. She survived. A week after the settlement, Simone took her out for dinner. "You could disappear now if you wanted," she said. "Move to Hawaii. Start a new life." Emily smiled. "I thought about it, but there's something I need to finish first." "What's that?" "I want to make sure no woman ever gets blindsided the way I did." Simone raised her glass. "Now that's the kind of revenge I like." Systemic. Emily spent the next 3 months turning pain into purpose. She used part of the settlement money to start the Signal Initiative, a nonprofit offering legal aid, mentorship, and digital protection training for women in high-pressure industries. She hired Maya as the first full-time employee. Simone joined the board. The press covered the launch. One journalist wrote, "The woman who was erased from her company's history is now building a future where no woman goes unseen." It wasn't just a headline, it was the truth. Then the email came. Subject: Warren and Blaine. Board up. Richard was gone. Jared had resigned effective immediately. The firm had hired a crisis ethics consultant and created a new executive oversight policy, ironically, based on a framework Emily had designed years ago and Jared had dismissed. Poetic justice never felt this good. But perhaps the most emotional moment came on a quiet Thursday. Emily was invited to speak at Worthington Tech's Women in Leadership Summit. As she stepped onto the stage, the room erupted in applause. Not polite, not performative. Real. She began, "I used to think justice meant someone else being punished. But I've learned. Real justice is reclaiming what they tried to take from you, your voice, your value, your future." Tears welled in her eyes. Some in the crowd were crying too. And if you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or erased, don't wait for someone to rescue you. The world may try to silence your story, but you write the ending. The room rose in a standing ovation. That night, Emily stood by the window in her new office overlooking the skyline, soft jazz playing behind her. She didn't just rebuild her life, she redesigned the battlefield. And this time, the rules were hers. They thought firing me would be the end. Turns out, it was just my origin story. As someone who shared an office wall with Emily for almost 5 years, I had a front row seat to both her brilliance and her unraveling. We weren't best friends, but we were close enough that I noticed when she stopped humming on her way to the break room, when her perfectly timed jokes dried up in meetings, when her laptop started staying open long after everyone else had gone home. I was there the night she got the email from Jared, the one where he casually delegated the pitch she built for 6 weeks to another team. She didn't cry, she just stared. I remember that, because it was the first time I saw her not know what to say. People on the outside didn't see it. They just saw the confident woman who'd landed 3 major clients before 30. But I saw the cost, the silence, the way she started double-checking her own ideas like they weren't hers. I was the one who found her dry heaving in the bathroom before the board meeting where Jared forgot to credit her again. And I was there when Maya was fired. What most people don't know is that Emily had warned Maya days earlier, even offered to take the fall herself. But Maya refused. She said, "You need to stay. You're the only one who knows where all the bones are buried." The worst part, watching Jared laugh with HR like they were buddies, while Emily sat across the table, clutching a notebook like it was the only thing tethering her to sanity. I wanted to stand up, scream even, but she squeezed my wrist under the table. "Just once, don't," she mouthed. "Not yet." That broke me, because this was the woman who once stood up to a global partner over a sexist ad campaign. And Now she had to play small just to survive another day in that place. What I'll never forget is the night she called me at 3:17 a.m., just breathing, not crying. "I think they're going to erase me," she finally said, like I was never here. That's when I started saving things, forwarding files to myself, printing time-stamped proposals. I even recorded a voice memo after Jared told me in passing. "She's too emotional to lead clients anyway. I don't care what laws that broke." I had to do something. When the mediation finally happened, I was outside the glass room, watching. I saw Jared's face when Simone brought out the flash drive. He paled, realized too late that the quiet girl from legal had been documenting everything. And Emily, she didn't gloat. She just sat there, spine straight, like someone who finally remembered who she was. I cried in the stairwell, not because we won, because she got herself back. People think justice is a courtroom and a gavel, but sometimes it's an inbox full of proof, a friend who never stopped watching, and a woman who refused to let herself be deleted. Today, 2 years after that meeting room showdown, Emily owns her own boutique consulting firm, one that prioritizes ethics, transparency, and the mental well-being of its employees. She mentors young professionals, especially women, teaching them how to protect themselves in toxic environments. As for Jared, after the HR scandal leaked through quiet whispers in the industry, his client list shrank by the month. He was eventually let go under the pretense of restructuring. No big press release, no farewell party, just silence, the same kind he'd weaponized against so many. Maya, the brave soul who sacrificed herself, she now works with Emily, building a company they both believe in. They didn't just survive, they rewrote the rules. There are lessons in this story that go far beyond corporate walls. First, silence is where injustice thrives. The moment you start second-guessing your reality because someone manipulates it, that's your red flag. Second, documentation is power. In a world where gaslighting is easier than ever, your receipts are your armor. Third, don't wait until you're completely broken to ask for help. The bravest thing Emily did wasn't standing up to Jared, it was letting someone stand beside her. And finally, justice doesn't always come fast, but with truth and consistency, it comes sharp. The path is rarely easy, but it's always worth it when you walk it with integrity. Stories like Emily's are painfully common in today's world across industries, schools, families. Power imbalances are everywhere, but so are people like Emily, and like you, the person reading this. Whether you're being underestimated, ignored, or outright erased, remember this: your story matters. Your dignity is not a luxury, it's a right. And in this digital age, every keystroke, every timestamp, every whispered truth can become a weapon for justice. Don't underestimate your ability to create change, even if it starts with just one voice saying, "No, not this time." If this story echoes your own, share it in the comments below. You never know who needs to hear it. This is more than a YouTube channel, it's a community. And you are not alone in your fight. So, like this video if it hit home. Subscribe to Sitka Storytelling for more true stories that shine a light in the dark and help us build a space where silence is no longer an option. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding that something else is more important than that fear. Justice, truth, dignity, the belief that good people shouldn't have to suffer in silence. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it.